What's up everyone, Jun with the SUSHI Man, and in this video, I'll show you the basics on sharpening Japanese knives using a whetstone. The knife is arguably the most important tool in cooking, and maintaining it properly is crucial for its performance. A sharp knife will obviously cut things better, but it's also safer to use since you don't have to exert extra force when cutting. So if your knife tends to make tomato juice rather than tomato slices, then you'll definitely want to watch this video. Alright, now let's jump right in. Now first, let's go over the equipment we'll need. Obviously, we'll need a knife. I'll be using my Miso no Gyuto for this tutorial, which is a Japanese double-beveled chef knife. Double bevel means it's angled from both sides and meets together to create the knife edge. Single bevel knives like the Yanagiba or Deba are sharpened a bit differently, which I plan to cover in a separate video. But the techniques I'll show you in this video can be used for any type of double beveled knives. This is kind of my beater knife that I use for most of my day-to-day cooking. I've also tested some different sharpening products with this, which is the reason why I have all these marks on it. The original plan was to try a full-on mirror finish, but I just haven't had the time. And just a note, this is a stainless steel knife, which is what I recommend starting with when learning how to sharpen a knife. High carbon steel is not necessarily harder, in fact it's actually easier to sharpen, but it's also more brittle, and the edge can be easily damaged if not done properly. Plus it rusts very fast, so there's just more things you need to be aware of. Okay, next we have our whetstone. I have a few different stones, but the one that I use most often, and really the only one you need, is this King KDS combination stone. One side is 1000 grit and the other side is 6000. The 1000 is considered a medium grit, while the 6000 is a fine finishing stone. So you can pretty much sharpen any knife with just this one combination stone, which makes it super convenient. And King is my go-to brand. They're made in Japan, high quality, and an extremely reputable company in the knife sharpening world. Now, you can find cheaper whetstones, but you get what you pay for. And if you have a high quality knife, then you want to use a high quality whetstone. As long as you take care of it properly, this can last you a lifetime, just like a quality knife. So I highly recommend this to anyone starting to sharpen their own knives. Now, technically, these two are the only things you need to start sharpening, but I have some other tools here that make knife sharpening much easier and safer. This is a whetstone holder, and basically what it does is hold the stone in place. These black rubber parts prevent it from slipping, and it also raises it up a bit, which gives you more clearance. Now that said, you could just use a wet towel or rubber mat to keep the stone in place, but these are much more efficient and they're not too expensive. Amazon carries a bunch for around $20-25 bucks, and I'll have links to all these items in the description below. Next, we have this sink bridge, which goes across your sink and holds the whetstone in place. This allows me to sharpen right over the sink, which is a lot less messy, and I have instant access to the water. It's kind of a luxury item though, so unless you're serious about knife sharpening, then you probably don't need this. Plus, this particular one is pretty pricey since it's imported from Japan. That said, it's made really well and one that I recommend if you're planning on sharpening knives a lot. Okay, next we have this small stone called a nagura. It's used to clean up the whetstone and also to create a slurry when using a finer stone, which enhances the sharpening process. You don't really need it to start, but it helps provide a smoother and more polished edge when working with the finishing stones. Lastly, a regular kitchen towel that you don't mind getting dirty. Alright, now let's move on to our setup. First thing we want to do is soak our whetstone for about 10 to 15 minutes. However, not all whetstones need to be soaked, especially the finer grit ones. So just make sure to follow the instructions that came with it because every stone is different. With mine here, I like to soak just the 1000 side for about 10 minutes or so. You do not have to soak the 6000 side. So I just get a little Tupperware and fill it up until the 1000 side is fully covered. Now while that soaks, let's place our sink bridge onto the top of our sink and adjust it so that it fits there nice and secure. With this particular one, there's an adjustment bolt on the bottom that allows it to extend and shorten. So all we do is just fit it onto the sink and tighten the bolt. And then now it's secure. Alright, once it's done soaking, we're going to place this onto our whetstone holder. And we always want to start with the coarser grit first, so we'll put the 1000 side on top. Just fits in there like that. And then we tighten these. So now it's not moving anywhere. Okay, now we're going to put this onto our sink bridge. And if you see here, we have a little adjustable latch. So we put the bottom part against that. And then the other side has these two stoppers with some bolts. And all we do is just tighten the small bolt on the bottom side here. And then tighten these two. Now just check to make sure everything is secure and not moving around. And that's it. Now we can start sharpening. So first, let's cover how to hold the knife. I'm right-handed, so I hold the handle with my right hand, while my left will guide and apply slight pressure onto the blade while we sharpen. I like to start with the outer side of the blade. So if you're holding the knife like this side is the outer side, and this is the inside. And then we lay this down onto our whetstone, but diagonally. You don't want your wrist to be at an uncomfortable position here. This wrist needs to be steady the whole time, so get it at a nice angle where it's comfortable for you. Now from here, we need to determine the angle that we sharpen. And this is the trickiest part. As you sharpen more knives and get more experience, you'll be able to just feel what the right angle is. But in the beginning, you might need a little guidance. And they sell angle guides that you can clip onto your knife, but I've personally never used them, so not sure how well they work. A general rule of thumb is that you want to sharpen at about a 12 to 15 degree angle. Now that's more so for Japanese style knives. Western knives tend to be at a higher angle, but for this video we're focusing on Japanese knives. So a couple different ways you can find this correct angle. One is to place your knife onto the whetstone and feel right where the edge of the blade hits the surface. And then start angling it up slowly until you feel the blade edge is as flush to the surface as possible. Meaning there's no bump and it just kind of flows onto each other. That's the optimum angle, which should be right around 15 degrees. Now this again takes practice and experience, but it's good to start getting a feel of it. Now another easier way, but not the most accurate, is to put 3 pennies down onto the whetstone and then lay the spine of your knife on it. And that should be roughly around that 15 degrees. And you can feel how that's flush as well. So once you find the correct angle, the most important part is to keep that angle consistent. That's why it's important to have a good, comfortable grip so that you can keep it at that same angle all throughout the process. I like to place my thumb on the heel of the blade while my index supports the spine like this. And then starting from the tip, place your other fingers onto the blade, right above where it meets the whetstone. And you can use 2 or 3, whichever is more comfortable for you. And then glide the knife up and away from you while applying some light pressure. And when you bring it back, don't apply any pressure at all. So again, pressure when you go away, no pressure on the way back. You never want to add pressure when the blade is going against the stone, so in this case when it's going back towards me. Okay, now add a little bit of water, and then keeping that same angle, we start sharpening from the tip to the heel. And we want to slowly move our guide fingers down the blade. And once you get to the heel of the blade, start back again from the top. Now be very cautious here that you're not applying any pressure where the knife is off the stone. If you apply pressure where the knife is hanging off, it'll bend the blade and will ruin the edge as you're trying to sharpen it. So just make sure that your support fingers are always on top of the whetstone. And if you start to notice the stone getting dry, just splash some water onto it. But try not to wash off too much of this slurry. This slurry actually helps sharpen the knife and will give you a better result. Now, you'll see me keep touching the edge. What I'm doing here is checking for what's called a burr. A burr is when the sharpened metal forms a small overhang onto the other side of the blade. So imagine this is the edge of the blade, and we sharpen it from one side till it eventually creates a small overhang onto the other. And you can feel it by running your thumb or finger across the edge like this. You should feel a slight catch, and we want that all the way from the tip of the knife to the heel. And then once you feel the burr all the way from the top to the bottom, it's time to flip it over. Now we have the blade edge facing away from us, but the same concept applies. I like to support the spine with my thumb and index finger is placed on the heel. Then with the same exact angle as the other side, we can start to sharpen. Now remember, you don't want to put any pressure going against the cutting edge, so in this case we apply pressure when we pull the blade towards us and no pressure when we go back up. Basically the opposite of what we were just doing. Keep the angle constant, and we do this again from tip to heel for several passes until we get that nice burr. Alright, good. We have a nice burr going on all the way down. Now we can move on to our finishing stone, which is the 6000 side. Now remember, we didn't soak this side of the stone, and typically these finishing stones with higher grit don't have to. But we do have to lubricate it a little bit by splashing some water onto it. And if you have a Nagura stone, then this is when you want to use it. You simply rub it on there to get rid of any marks. And more importantly, you create this slurry that you see here. This slurry helps enhance the sharpness and overall give you a better finish. Okay, now the same exact concept applies here. Start from one end and sharpen it with the same angle and motion as we did with the 1000 side. However, you don't want to apply as much pressure here. Since this is a finishing stone, we're really just getting rid of that burr and polishing it to get that really fine edge. Okay, now let's switch over to the other side. Alright, that feels really good. Now, the knife is extremely sharp and it's good to go as is here, but I like to add one last finishing touch, which is called stropping. Stropping is basically the last refining of the edge to make sure that there is no burr left and we get it as close to that razor sharp edge as possible. And they have leather strops specially made for this, but I just use a finishing stone like this one here. And all we do is give it a nice clean stroke going from the tip to the heel in one smooth motion. Again, at the same angle that we've been sharpening at. No pressure, just let it glide really smooth. I do this maybe 6-7 times and then flip it over. Now this side can be a little tricky because the handle gets in the way. So I like to start the blade horizontal like this, and then swoop down in one motion like that while you turn the knife. Now check to see if you feel any burr, which at this point you shouldn't. And that's when you know you're finished. Now we're just going to rinse this off and wipe it nice and clean. And that's it. Now I'm sure you want to see how sharp it is, right? So let's do a good old paper test. See how clean it could cut some sheets of paper. Ooh, that feels so nice. Alright, enough of that. This video is already longer than I was originally planning, but I hope that you were able to learn the basics of sharpening with the whetstone and can start applying these techniques to your own knives. And over time, as you practice, you'll start to develop your own style and see what works best for you. The important thing is to just start. I understand it can be a little intimidating, but it's very rare to mess up a knife so bad where it can't be fixed. So start off by getting the right tools and then just keep practicing. Alright, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, feel free to leave me any questions or comments below. And don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button if you found it helpful. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Arigatou gozaimasu.